Hey guys, welcome back to more Entitled Karen stories. In this video, an insane Karen went to my restaurant and demanded a VIP table, claiming that she is more important than anything else, and then ended up not paying her $5,000 bill. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one starts like this. So I had a job at the same fast food restaurant off and on for a total of 5 years, and in these years I've witnessed so many entitled parents, kids and malicious compliance stories that I can write a book about it. But I will start with this one. Some backstory first. I started my job the same moment the restaurant was set up, so in these years I got to know a lot about the company itself and knew most of the locations. I also knew that our restaurant was the most north restaurant in the country, and the province next to us, let's call it Province L, had no restaurant within the franchise. Not every employee knew this, but I did. I also knew that when we had new products that needed to get tested by the community, this would be at restaurants in the capital of the country, aka the capital restaurants, and my province and Province L were nowhere near these restaurants. Because of my experience and bond I had with employees and customers, the managers knew that I did not needed help with crazy customers only when I called them. On to the story though, there was a new vegetarian option tested only in the capital restaurants. Not every customer knew this, so when they asked for the product, I explained that we were not part of the test group. I always got a good response to this until this happened. On a not-so-busy night, a young Karen walked in and bowls for my cash register. The conversation went something like this. Me with a polite tone, "Welcome to name of the restaurant. How can I..." Karen, "I want your vegetarian options right now." Me, "Sorry miss, only the capital restaurants belong to the test group. Sadly, we don't serve this option yet." Karen now screaming, "You're lying. I had it yesterday at Province L and they told me it was served everywhere, so I want it. And since the customer is always right, you need to serve me what I ask." And that's where I placed my trap card. We cashiers get yelled at a lot, but since I knew that she was lying or mistaking us for another restaurant and yelling, I decided to play along. Me, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I was confused with another product. I haven't had the sandwich yet. Is it any good?" Karen, "I really liked it and I'm happy that you finally have a vegan option for the sandwiches." We already had that, by the way. Me, "I see, there's only one problem. You see, I know for a fact that Province L does not serve any of these sandwiches. Even better, none of our restaurants are in Province L." Karen's face became red, but not from shame, oh no, from anger. Karen screaming, "Don't have that tone with me. I want to speak to your manager." So I called my manager, trap card activated. You see, I knew that my manager was in the kitchen out of view from customers, and I knew that when Karen started screaming for the first time, my manager would listen in. Manager with a large grin, "What seems to be the problem here?" Karen, "Your employee has an attitude. I want a discount." Me, "Karen wanted to order the vegan option that she ordered at our restaurant at Province L." Manager grabbed his phone and showed Karen the list with all the restaurants and all the provinces. And what a surprise, Province L was not on there. Manager, "You see, it might be the case that you mistake us with another franchise. In that case, I would not do anything. But since you started to yell at my employee, I would ask you to get the hell out of my restaurant. Or do you want me to call security on you?" Karen's face was priceless. With both anger and convulsion, she stormed off, but not before I told her to have a nice day. And yeah, ripe stars, if you've ever worked in customer service or in any capacity with any entitled Karens, then please let us know about your crazy stories in the comments, because I would love to hear about them. The next one is titled, "Karen wants VIP table and racks up $5,000 bill in my restaurant." So I have always been a big foodie. I come from a very diverse family, so I was exposed to a lot of different foods growing up. Food is undoubtedly connected to our culture, and I love eating and trying different types of cuisine because it helps me to learn about different cultures and places. Because I grew up with such a wide variety of food, I began learning how to cook because I wanted to recreate all my favorite dishes. This made me realize that I wanted to pursue a career in the food industry mostly related to cooking. However, I was unsure of what exactly I wanted to do. Still, I went to culinary school to sharpen my skills in the kitchen. Around 2 years into my time at culinary school, my advisor approached me asking me if I knew what I wanted to do with my career. When I told her I was unsure, she suggested to me a few ideas like a head chef at an independent restaurant or a private chef for those rich families. The one that stuck out most to me was running my own restaurant. I considered opening up a business a long time ago because I knew that I liked independence, but somehow I never put two and two together to think about opening up a restaurant. I ultimately decided it was the path I wanted to follow, and it ended up being the right choice. After I graduated and received my initial degree, I earned an additional additional degree in business administration and began working on kickstarting my restaurant. Of course, I worked several jobs in between, working my way up from a line cook to a head chef and growing my resume. These jobs helped me save money for my restaurant, and after 6 years, I was finally able to open it. I created the menu myself and the restaurant matched my exact vision. I would not say it's a 5-star Michelin restaurant, but it's definitely one of the more higher-end restaurants in my city. I'm a very hands-on owner, so I'm practically at the restaurant 24 hours a day. I'm usually managing or expediting in the back, and if it gets particularly busy, I will even step in to help the chef. If not somewhere in the back, I walk around, usually just observing the restaurant and making sure all my customers are happy. I always try to make my customers feel welcome and almost as if they are at home when they are in my restaurant. After all, it's a restaurant, not Buckingham Palace. Because I'm always there just walking around, my employees sometimes approach me when a problem arises with particularly frustrating customers. I don't like causing scenes at my restaurant, it only kills the atmosphere, but I try to deal with these customers as professionally and as quickly as possible. This time around, I had to deal with a Karen, as the internet would call her, that unfortunately broke my rule of not causing a scene. So we have 4 VIP tables that are located on a balcony area on the 2nd floor of the restaurant. It's a really nice seating area that overlooks the city. Since my restaurant is located on a hill, these seats are usually reserved for friends, family and important people such as celebrities and the mayor. This time the tables were all reserved. 2 of them were celebrations of some sort, but 1 table was reserved for my extended family who were coming over from another country. They had not been to my restaurant before, and I of course wanted to give them a good experience, so I gave them one of the best seats. According to my hostess, a woman, let's call her Karen to keep it simple, showed up an hour before my family's allotted reservation time and requested the VIP table for her and her friends. My hostess explained to Karen that the VIP table was already reserved, to which Karen just scoffed and said, "Honey, I know the owner. Get me Giovanni." My name is not Giovanni, and I'm not even Italian. My hostess told her that she was mistaken and that there was no owner named Giovanni, but Karen was not listening and told her to hurry up and get them the table. Even when my hostess kept insisting that Karen had no reservation and couldn't just get access to the VIP tables, the woman just kept arguing and started to get visibly angry. My hostess, bless her soul, did not want to cause a scene and hold up the other parties waiting, so she just gave them the VIP table my family was supposed to sit at. I don't blame her for any of this, mind you, she was trying to do her job. Later my extended family arrived. I quickly greeted them and told my hostess to show them their table before running back into the kitchen. I was expediting, so I couldn't leave the kitchen for too long. However, my poor family members obviously could not be seated, so they had to wait until Karen's table left. I did not even know about this until after I confronted Karen. Anyways, throughout the night I got ticket after ticket from one of the VIP tables. They ordered insanely expensive stuff like caviar, lobster, champagne, pastas with bits of truffle. Of course I was very surprised as I was reading out the orders because I assumed this table was my family's. Even though my restaurant is higher end, I didn't expect my family to be indulging so much on such expensive items. As the night progressed, dishes started getting sent back from that specific VIP table, much to my obvious confusion. When I asked why, the waiter said it was simply because they did not like the taste and wanted another dish. Throughout the night I could tell that the waiters were serving the VIP section were getting progressively annoyed. It came to a head when one of my waiters came in crying. I asked her what was wrong and she said that one of the VIP tables was being very mean to her and that they called her a horrible server. And by the way, ripe stars, I think at this point Gordon Ramsay would have kicked Karen's ass. Anyway, when I asked the other waiters, they said similar things, noting that the table was making very rude comments about the horrible service. Of course, I was shocked. At this point, I still believed that this table was my family. I knew my family had rude tendencies at times. I've been to enough dinner outings with my extended family to know how they could act when things go wrong, but I didn't think that they would snap at my server in my own restaurant. Now I was fuming. If they were being mean to my servers, I was ready to kick them out, even if they were family. I told my general manager to expedite in my place while I checked what was going on. As I entered the VIP section, I scanned the entire area, looking for my family, but I did not see them, and much to my confusion, I asked one of my servers which table was being rude, and he pointed out Karen's table, which were obnoxiously loud. Half of the table was clearly under the influence, and I could tell the other diners were very annoyed at the disturbance. I watched how they interacted with one of my servers. He was busy clearing out dishes for my family's table, and when he passed by Karen's table, Karen snapped her fingers at him and told him that she was still waiting on another bottle of champagne. I'm sure that most of you already know this, but that is no way to treat a server. Waiters are not your servants and they are not dogs. You should not snap or yell at them to get their attention. They are human and should be treated as such. Anyway, I was fuming at this point and ready to kick them out. I printed their bill, which was a whopping $5,000 by the way, and approached them with it. When I placed it on their table, Karen sneered at me and said, "Oh, there's no need. I know Giovanni, the owner. He will take care of it. I don't need to pay anything here. I'm literally a VIP guest." I simply smiled and replied, "I am the owner, and I'm afraid you're mistaken, ma'am. There's no Giovanni here." Karen got really flustered and started mustering up excuses. "Well, you must be his business partner. Yeah, he told me about you. I'm forgetful. Look, just comp the meal and we'll be on our way." Honestly, the sheer audacity of that woman still surprises me. I told her that she and her party consumed $5,000 worth of food, hence $5,000 worth of my restaurant's inventory. Food like that is expensive to import, and I was here to make a profit, not run a charity, so she had to pay for her food. You know, in cartoons where a character gets so angry that their face turns red and steam blows out of their ears? Well, that is what Karen looked like when I told her that. She started yelling at me, insulting me, my restaurant and my staff. She said the food and service were terrible and that because of that she deserved to have her meal comped. If it was so bad, by the way, then why did you spend $5,000 worth of stuff, right? She even threatened to sue me if I did not comp her meal. Obviously, I knew my rights and there was no way I was in the wrong. So I pulled out my phone and called 911, telling her that I would be calling the cops for trespassing since she was in the VIP area without a reservation, causing a disruption and refusing to pay for services. Even as I was calling the cops, Karen kept making a scene, cussing out me and all my staff once more. Her friends were just watching her silently, I think some were even embarrassed. Once the police arrived, Karen immediately exploded. As they were handcuffing her, she kept screaming about how this was a direct violation of her rights and that she would get the officers and the entire police department sued. She kept saying that she knew people and that they would be angry if they find out what happened. She mentioned the mayor, other government officials, and even the police chief. Seriously, if I had a nickel for every time she kept screaming about her rights as a paying customer or dropped the name of some influential person in our city, I would have enough money to reimburse myself for her hefty bill. They arrested her and her friends too, who were equally as upset about getting arrested. After they were filed out, my family cheered, grateful that Karen and her obnoxious friends were gone. I apologized to them about the seating arrangement, telling them that I had no idea. My hostess apologized to me and explained why she had to seat them there. I told her it was fine but advised her to get me the next time something like this happened again. The police came back and asked if I wanted to press charges, and of course I said yes. I had lost a lot of inventory here since they had not paid up and caused a scene in my restaurant and inconvenienced my family and my patrons. I easily won the case, earning enough to reimburse my restaurant for Karen's fanatics. The incident caught a lot of attention from the local news station, and a while ago they approached me asking about what happened that night. I explained the situation to them, mixing in a bit of humor here and there to lighten the story a little bit, and revealed security camera footage I had used in the case showing Karen's outburst. I gave thanks to my staff for their patience and professionalism, as well as my diners for tolerating Karen. The reporter asked me what I had to say about everything, and I said, don't mess with restaurant owners, especially if they are the ones you are claiming to know. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. A decade ago, I inherited a house from my grandparents because they had passed away. It was not the house we lived in, as we lived in a rented apartment within the city. This house was located a little way out of the city, where my father had lived with his parents and brother before they moved away, leaving only my grandparents behind. Now, my grandparents were preparing to shift to live closer to a big city before they died, so that they could get proper care, and my parents wanted to help them. However, they did not want to part with the beautiful house. At that time, I was still studying and I was in a different state too. But despite all that, they decided to give the house to me with the intention that I would move in once I had finished my studies. It had been a while since I last visited the house, so I decided to take some time off from my studies and flew back to my city. The house was truly magnificent. My grandfather had built it when he first moved to the city, and it had that charming antique style. It was a single-story house, but it had a considerable perimeter, along with a beautiful veranda and a big back garden. My grandparents had grown many vegetables there, and they even had a guava tree. I was quite young when I was handed the papers and the key to that house, and I still remember feeling so scared of all the responsibility. I flew back to the city where I'd been studying after my father left a guard in charge of taking care of the house. A year flew by quickly, and after numerous attempts, I finally secured a job placement in my own city, and about a month before the start of my internship, I decided to return and get the house back in order. However, to my utter horror, I arrived back at the house only to find a rather empty-looking plot of land. We had a beautiful garden before, with an unfamiliar-looking new house surrounded by a fence and locked gate. I immediately called my father in a panic, who in turn called the security guard. At that moment, I was also trying to ask around the neighborhood to find out what had happened. I approached my neighbor, but to my surprise, he refused to answer me. I could see people inside the house, but they completely ignored me when I rang their doorbell, and it was clear they had something to do with this situation. My father called me back to inform me that the security guard picked up his call once, but when my father inquired about this house, the guard abruptly dropped the call and switched off his phone. I asked my father to come to the city as quickly as possible before going to the police station myself. At the police station, when I tried to explain the matter to the officers, they raised their voices, telling me to stop creating a ruckus in the station and to just be calm. Realizing there was no point in arguing with them, I did my best to calm down and give them a detailed account of the situation. However, instead of filing an FIR, the police officers told me that my house was already gone and there was no use in crying over it. They even went on to suggest that my family was wealthy enough to buy me a new house in the city. I was so angry at that time that I started shouting at the officer, who in turn threatened to have me arrested if I dared to raise my voice. I demanded that he file an FIR and initiate an investigation, but the officer blatantly refused. Judging by his reaction and his defensive words, I had a gut feeling that he was involved in this case as well. When he looked like he would not be changing his mind, I told him that either he must file an FIR and start an investigation, or I would use my rich family's resources to get to the bottom of this. The officer responded with curses and dared me to do whatever I could, making it clear that he had no intention of filing an FIR for a rich brat like me. I got out of the police station and immediately made my way to one of my relatives' houses. I also called my father and told him about everything that happened. My father arrived at my maternal uncle's house in the evening, where I was staying. He reassured me that everything would be alright. My paternal uncle would be joining us the next day, and they had plans to handle everything. I shared my suspicions about the neighbor and the officer, but my father assured me that he was hiring the best advocate for our case and I did not need to worry anymore. He also advised me to start looking for an apartment in the city because cases like these could take a long time. I reached out to some of my friends who were moving to the same city for their jobs, asking them where they would be staying. The following day, my father along with my uncles went to meet with the advocate while I set out to hunt for an apartment. I returned home early and was helping my aunt in the kitchen when I received a call from my father. He informed me that they were going to visit the plot where our house used to stand and asked if I wanted to come with them. Of course, I agreed, and I was surprised to find that my father had brought another group of police officers with him. As we arrived at the location where the house used to be, we spotted our neighbor loading his car with bags. I immediately informed one of the officers who stopped the neighbor and requested him to come in for an investigation. The neighbor tried to argue, but he was soon taken away for questioning. My father then dropped me off at my uncle's house before going with the police. The following day, I learned that the neighbor had denied any connection to our house and had even threatened my father, claiming that he would sue me and have me sent to jail. Our advocate conducted a thorough investigation and discovered that the reason our property had been fenced off was that it had been sold to someone else. We contacted the new owner and learned that the vacant land had been purchased from our neighbor a few months ago. Our neighbor was again called in for questioning, and this time he claimed ownership of the land and said that he could do whatever he wanted with it. Our advocate advised us to take this case to court and for me to file a lawsuit against my neighbor since the house and the property was in my name. And well, the case dragged on for a significant amount of time. What should have been an open and shut case became complex due to our neighbor's constant attempts to produce documents that proved his ownership of the land, only for these documents to be declared forged by the court. As the weeks passed during the legal battle, we also discovered that our neighbor had made a deal with the security guard shortly after we left before demolishing our house. The security guard's whereabouts were traced down after a month, and when he was called in for questioning, he initially claimed that I had signed off my property to the neighbor. However, it took another round of court proceedings to expose his lies. In summary, it was a messy case that lasted for about 6 months, which is relatively short considering how long legal matters can linger in India. Our advocate's expertise helped rush the process. In the end, all the individuals involved in this scheme were exposed, including the police officer who was fired and fined for bribery. The security guard was also fined, but our neighbor faced more severe consequences. He was not only fined a substantial amount and was supposed to give the money back, but was also sentenced to jail. Although I was relieved to see him behind bars, there was no way to bring our house back. Instead of attempting to replicate the previous house, I decided to transform the land into a plant nursery with a small house in the middle for managing the business. Either way, the next one is a petty revenge story. Every year, my family likes to plan a big vacation together. It's usually my mom, my sister, my brother and his wife, my daughter, her husband and my grandbaby, and finally me and my husband. We also have open invitations to other various relatives. This year they wanted to do an all-inclusive resort in Aruba. It was settled and tickets were purchased. While I don't mind going on vacation with family, I have some qualms with the various parties who are attending. Let's start with my mom, who is up in age but has not really taken the best care of her body. So she has weight problems that have affected her ability to walk. It has also led to sleep apnea. This means that she cannot walk very far without taking tons of breaks and will fall asleep anywhere. Which is not a problem, except every time we plan an activity that requires some level of physical fitness, she discourages us from doing it and she cannot take us having fun without her. So we ended up scrapping our plans and doing whatever activity she feels she can do. Then there's my brother who wants to go and cannot afford his own way. This leads him to scrounge off my mom to find a way to go. Usually, it plays itself out as he says he is going, his ticket gets bought and everything else paid for, and then my mom will have some sort of emergency where we need to help her out. We basically end up giving her close to, if not more than what it costs for my deadbeat brother to go, and then we spend the rest of the vacation paying for him and mom through meals, tickets to attractions and anything else that tickles their fancy. Now that you have some background, let's get to the a-hole part. As we get closer to the trip, I get rumblings of my mom needing the cash for house repairs, and then my brother has to quit his job to go on the trip because the man won't let him off and my daughter and her husband book the honeymoon suite. As all this is going down and we confirm flights, accommodations and excursions, I just nod my head and agree. The day of the trip we all head to the airport and get through security. As everyone turns left to go to their gate, me and my husband turn the opposite way. They start quizzing us where we are going and we are getting something to eat. Can we bring them some? So I just turn to them and say, we have decided to go on a cruise out of Miami. See you guys in a couple of weeks. My daughter is irate and says, who is going to watch the baby while we enjoy our second honeymoon? My mother is like, who's gonna pay for this for her and pay for that? My brother just looks dumbfounded like he just lost his pet, and they all start to tell me how I am ruining their vacation and I am an a-hole and stuff. And yeah guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. And also check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on Spotify, Amazon, Audible and other podcast platforms. You will often find exclusive episodes and early access to new content. Furthermore, please check out my Patreon by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or my YouTube membership program for even more exclusive stories. Thank you so much and I will see you again tomorrow.